That's right. Greetings, fellow armchair Imagineers and medieval times enthusiasts. Tiki here.
And Blue Dragon 5.
And tonight we're talking about the one, the only Cable Guy.
Cable Guy!
All right, Dragon, we're back with another Jim Carey retrospective. It's the month of April Fools. And what is Jim Carey if not the king of the fools?
Yep.
We started out with Liar Liar, the first time that I'd seen Liar Liar, which was kind of a big watch for me. We're going on to something that's a little bit more we're kind of dipping our toes into the semi-serious side of Carey. This one's definitely still a comedy, but very much a dark comedy, almost a black comedy, if you will. And Dragon, as you know, I actually just watched this for the first time a few months ago, so it's still pretty fresh in my head.
Mm-hmm.
I really, really enjoy it. Honestly, I think it holds up. For me, I think just by the nature of what it is and how cynical it is, I honestly think it ages itself better than like a lot of the Jim Carrey like prototypical classics, your like Ace Venturas and your Masks and your Dumb and Dumbers and all that stuff. Like, don't get me wrong, those movies are all still great, but they certainly do have some dated elements to it. Whereas I feel like with this, it's very much like the cynicism. Like, I feel like it doesn't date it. It's kind of like that fine wine sort of philosophy. You know what I mean? I feel like how cynical this movie is, and also with how parasocial friendships in general have become in the internet age. I think this movie is, if anything else, ahead of its time when a lot of Carrey's other classics are just a little bit dated. So, I'm all on board for this. I've definitely got some thoughts on the Ben Stiller of it all when it comes to directing and kind of comparing it to what Ben Stiller's doing on Severance. I love the tone. I love the visual ambition here. I feel like we're not really doing like the cartoon stuff, but we're still like just on a cinematography filmmaking level. This I feel like is a little bit of a step up, just crafts wise. And then also, just the last note I'll have is Dragon, again, especially when we're in the midst of fucking Minecraft April, it's so weird to see Jack Black in, like, the straight man role. It's so odd. It's almost uncanny.
Oh, yeah.
All right. So we got some comments. We'll get to them as soon as Dragon gives his little thesis.
Yeah, so The Cable Guy, one of the most underrated Jim Carrey films. The public consensus was that it was like Carrey's first flop, but it was like his first flop, but that it broke his streak. It wasn't really a flop, but it did definitely break the streak of like the critically beloved darlings of or box office successes.
Mm-hmm.
When things started for him. I mean, for me, it was like the thing of, the way I found this movie was, I was a big Jim Carrey fan. I was looking into, oh man, what other movies has he done? And of course, I'm directed, I'd never heard of The Cable Guy. I should watch this. Of course, again, it was just the idea of like, it's a Jim Carrey performance you never saw before, which, I mean, that was like the big draw. So it was definitely a treat and definitely different than anything else you'd ever really seen him do,
Mm-hmm.
At least, then. But so ultimately, you look at this. It's like Jim Carrey took a big swing to show that he had range and kind of rebel against being typecast. Rebel against, more specifically, Ace Ventura 2. This is after you did Ace Ventura 2, and we'll get into that down the line at some point. Well, at some point it'll be covered. And Ace Ventura 2 is a bit of a sore spot with Jim Carrey. It's not that he didn't do a good job, but let's just say he didn't want to
I feel like it's one of those sequels, like, I haven't personally seen it, but it's kind of like in that whole, like, the Hangover Part 2 territory where it's like, it's the first movie again.
Well, it's not. I mean, I wouldn't go that far. It's basically we have it's a very different situation. Like we
Okay,
take him
okay.
way out of the city. But no, I hear your point though. Is the fact that it's very much like let's do the Ace Ventura stick, but actually put him in Africa. That's
Mhm,
essentially what the
mhm.
premise of the second one is. So I mean, it's kind of like the cartoon they made in live action. That's kind of it's kind of what it is. But anyway, the point being, he's got feelings on that, which we'll get to down the line. Regardless, this is kind of responsive. This is Jim Carrey very much kind of after that. Like I really don't want to repeat myself. So ultimately, Liar Liar to me, especially after it covered, and this came right before Liar Liar, like chronologically. So ultimately, Liar Liar I feel is like the more subtle and kind of gentle transition into what Jim Carrey would do with like the more serious roles.
Mhm.
But this is a clever dark comedy. It's a satire, on the dangerous kind of media obsession, and Ben Stiller directed the heck out of it. It's one of the most unique Jim Carrey movies. Foreshadows the themes of the Truman Show. That's what I'm saying. This is a stepping stone to the Truman Show, along with Liar Liar. It feels like they're a two-part combination. This is all about kind of like the media kind of theme that we get from Truman Show, and beyond that, Liar Liar is kind of like where the pathos needs to be for the Truman Show. So again, Truman, honestly, Liar Liar feels like the more successful version of what he was going for with the Cable Guy to some extent. But obviously, he wanted to go really dark to like show that okay, no, I'm not just Mr. Ha Ha all the time. I can be scary and funny.
Mhm, mhm. Right, right. That it?
I mean, is it that bad?
What?
did I did I spin my wheels that
No,
much?
no, you're good. You're good. I'm just making sure you're finished.
Yeah, no, I'm done.
Okay, you're fine. No, no. All right. Okay. I'm sorry, Dragon. Yeah. To get into the comments here, we have Kogia saying, "When X-Men gets rebooted, I want Jim Carrey to play Cable." Is a silly reference to this movie. Oh dear. What do you think of that, Dragon?
Ah, don't think we'll quite have the same punch.
All right. We got Teddy saying underrated Jim Carrey flick. Indeed. That dares to ask, what if we made a traditional Jim Carrey comedy but cynical and in the real world? Dragon, is it fair to say that like I honestly think this movie is kind of like halfway between like comparing this to like Adam Sandler's career. It's like this definitely isn't as dramatic. Like Punch Drunk Love is not as dramatic as Eternal Sunshine, but I feel like this is a little lighter than Punch Drunk Love. So I kind of feel like this is sort of like the middle ground in regards to like, the 90s comedians having that big role that kind of takes them out of their comfort zone, but is still technically a comedy.
I'd say it's in the ballpark.
Uh-huh.
It's really weird how many parallels there are between Jim Carrey and Adam Sandler's careers. If you really think about it, just in terms of like these are guys who basically their names became kind of the patented kind of movie that they make. And then
Right,
one of the
right.
ways we
Yeah.
then redefine, recontextualize that over their careers.
I think Jim Carrey was like very self-aware about it, and Adam Sandler was just like, "Money, baby, free vacations with friends.
Yeah, that's a
Every
thing.
10 years, I'll do something that might give me some critical
Might
praise."
be a little more to analyze on the Jim Carrey side of things, but yeah, that's
Right, right.
pretty much it. Yeah.
Okay. Yes, Teddy Severance is so good. Dragon, you should watch it. I mean, I know that I know I wasn't totally glowing about season two. I have some issues with season two, but still, it's a ride. It's definitely a
I
ride.
still would love to see Adam Scott play young George Lucas. I got to be honest.
Oh, I could. Oh my god. Oh, he totally has the voice for it. Oh, I could totally see that. All right. Yeah, Zoolander is a classic, man. We need to talk about Zoolander at some point. Seriously,
Did
that
he
movie
also
is
direct
a classic.
Zoolander, or is he just in
He
Zoolander?
directed it.
Okay, I didn't know he
Yeah,
directed Zoolander. That's cool.
he directed Zoolander. Did you know he directed Tropic Thunder?
Wait, so that was his. That was him too.
Yeah, yeah,
I forgot that he directed Tropic
yeah.
Thunder. Okay.
All right. Code Geass, you continue to fascinate me with what movies you choose to focus on. I'm not complaining on all that. I mean, to be fair to Code Geass, I feel like that was relevant. We were talking about Ben Stiller. He cited literally the movie that Ben Stiller made after The Cable Guy, you know. All right. Oh God, Kogias says I'm not a big fan of Larry the Cable Guy's comedy, but I think he should have had a cameo in this.
Okay.
This must have been if Larry the Cable Guy was around when this movie came out, it certainly was not like the fully formed Larry the Cable Guy that we know. Like I don't even think he was around at all. Maybe like the guy who's not actually like maybe. If he was around, I doubt he actually had the Larry the Cable Guy stage name that early on. So Jack Black's been a very consistently good actor for over 20 years. Even when he's not in a good film, he's good. Yeah.
Actually, speaking of Jack Black and Ben Stiller, if my memory serves, did you ever see the movie Envy?
Yeah, Dragon, I have a soft spot for Envy.
Yeah, I think I've already talked about it on Memoirs or something, right?
Yeah. That movie's underrated, man. I'd have to look into that, but I think that might also be a Ben Stiller movie.
Yeah, I think so.
I'm pretty sure it is.
That I think you're right about. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, Jack Black, he's all right. Jack Black's Jack Black's kind of on my shit list right now because of the Tenacious D situation. He essentially broke up Tenacious D to focus on being a Hollywood sellout.
Did you notice that the other half of Tenacious D, Kyle Gass, he's in this movie, right?
I didn't. You know what?
You missed his cameo.
I did miss his cameo.
And it was a lovely cameo. He has a really lovely cameo.
To be fair, I did catch the Odenkirk cameo.
Good man.
All right. Let's see. I have a soft spot for Ace Ventura 2, but it's not as funny as the first. Weirdly, not as dated as the first can be, in my opinion. Dragon, have you and I ever broken down Wayne's World versus Wayne's World 2?
I mean, we've talked about it. I don't think we've actually done a full discussion on it.
No, I don't think we've never done a full podcast, but I actually have the hot take that I think Wayne's World 2 is probably not the better movie, but I think I might enjoy it more just because I really, really like how far it goes with the fourth wall stuff. But anyways, I digress. I think Wayne's World 2 is kind of another example of it's the first movie again. Okay, guys, I'm going to kind of skip over the rest of this.
It's the relevant one, Sticky.
Yeah. Ben Stiller was always a satirical fella. People are always like, I can't believe Ben Stiller was involved in Severance, and I'm like, he always had that.
That is very,
indeed.
That's very true.
Kokias, we will. I don't think we're getting to the Majestic this month. No. I'm curious to revisit the Majestic at some point.
We talked about it, but we kind of opted for a wider selection. But it was tempting.
I was not impressed with the Majestic when I saw it, but I was literally a 12-year-old child when I saw it. So my movie taste might have evolved since then a little bit. All right. Okay. Let's get into it, Dragon. I'm sorry. Let me get this calmed out. Where do you want to start?
Well, the background.
Oh, duh, obviously. Go ahead.
Okay, so ironically, another Jim Carrey movie that starts with a lawyer writing a script. No joke, another lawyer-written script. This is Lou Holtz Jr., basically. So Cable Guy has a really interesting story. The condensed version is this. So Lou Holtz Jr., he basically saw a Cable Guy he was visiting his mother, and there was a Cable Guy, it was I think it was nighttime, and he was ominously in the hallway. He's like, what's a Cable Guy doing there at this time of night? And essentially, that's where we get the visual of the whole peephole hallway kind of settings. That's where that comes from. That was the impetus for the movie. Is a Cable Guy in a familiar situation they probably shouldn't be there in. So this inspired basically a lighthearted buddy comedy, and he sent it to Bernie Brillstein, Jim Henson's representation at the time. Well, I mean, back then, I'm saying Bernie Brillstein's he's been the agent kind of producer for a lot of people, but anyway. So they wanted Bernie Brillstein wanted this for Chris Farley. This is Chris Farley post Tommy Boy. Again, a sober Chris Farley, top of his game. This is big.
Yeah, I could kind of see Chris Farley. I don't know, though. I don't necessarily know if Chris Farley has the menacing quality. That's the question.
Well, that's the thing, T. There was no
Yeah.
menace in the original version. That's the thing. So there was
Okay.
no.
Okay.
That's the cable thing was just more of like, what's the cable guy doing here at this? Like, it's kind of like,
Was it basically just like a vehicle for pop culture references?
I don't know about that. All I know was it was just kind of like Chris Farley. He's funny. Probably put him in a duo, kind of a buddy comedy thing. They hadn't cast. I don't think they had the Steven character in mind yet. Casting wise, it was like, let's just have Chris Farley. Now we know he's really good in duos. Let's put him in this movie as kind of a wacky, very overly social and familiar cable guy. And again, very lighthearted version of the core story of the film. And Chris Farley loved the movie. Here's the problem. So he and David Spade, post Tommy Boy, they were contracted to do like one or two more movies with Paramount. So they basically rushed into whatever the next projects were so Farley could do Cable Guy, which that's how we get Black Sheep. The very much of a rush job of the movie Black Sheep was. You ever see that one?
I don't think so.
It's funny. It's funny. Your girl directed that one.
My girl?
Yeah, Penelope Spheris, the one who did Wayne's World.
Okay. I mean, again, Dragon, we've been over there. I wouldn't exactly I like the Wayne's World movies. I haven't like adamantly followed her career or anything. I wouldn't call her my girl, but
all right. She's not your B-related death. Okay, I get you.
You literally read my mind on that one. Oh my god.
Anyway.
Put his glasses on. He can't see without his glasses.
Okay. So the moment I said my girl, when you said my girl, I knew, okay, that's exactly what he's thinking of.
Yup, you were right.
Okay, anyway, so point being, they go to do Black Sheep, which basically is the very unsuccessful cash-in Tommy Boy. It's essentially what Black Sheep is.
Right.
It was basically, there was a crossroads moment where basically Chris Farley put a lot of faith in David Spade. He basically look, the script's not really where we need it to be. You read the new draft, you decide if we should do Black Sheep or if we want to tell him to hold it so I can do Cable Guy. And David Spade said, look, the script's good enough. We can probably fix it along the way. Ultimately, that was it wasn't the only decision, but it was it was that couple with Jim Carrey had expressed interest in the movie along with Judd Apatow. Now, Judd Apatow and Jim Carrey knew each other from In Living Color.
Now, Judd Apatow, yeah, because I know that after In Living Color, he went on to do Freaks and Geeks, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, because it's going to be a while before he breaks into movies.
Yeah.
At this time period.
Well, that thing, he's not a director yet.
Right. That's what I'm saying.
He's the creative, and he's the writer, and he's the producer. So that's it. They knew each other from In Living Color. Judd Apatow was.
Although I'm definitely guessing that that's where he met his Leslie Mann.
Yeah, exactly. That they met each other on this movie.
So
this is how he ends up marrying Leslie Mann.
That's how we got Paul Rudd as his avatar.
There you go.
Did you know that character was my first exposure to Paul Rudd?
Wait, which specific character?
His character from Knocked Up.
Oh, okay. Well, I mean, isn't Paul Rudd also in 40-Year-Old Virgin? Or am I misremembering?
Yes, but I didn't. He doesn't have as major of a role in Knocked Up. He has in 40-Year-Old Virgin, he's just part of the larger friend group.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
So it's a major supporting character.
So that's what I mean.
I'm sure I saw him in 40-Year-Old Virgin first, but Knocked Up was when I first kind of took notice of him.
Do you remember if Knocked Up is officially a spin-off of the 40-Year-Old Virgin or not?
No, not the spin-off you're probably thinking of is This Is 40.
Well, wait. So what's that one a spin-off?
This Is 40 is a spin-off of Knocked Up, and that And that is directly a continuation of Paul Rudd and Leslie Mann.
Gotcha. Okay, yeah. I got you now. Anyway, the point being, laters. So, regardless, Judd Apatow. The
Paul Rudd cinematic universe.
Well, he is the center of all. Well, again, Paul Rudd saved. Paul Rudd saved Endgame.
Again, I would respect Death of a Unicorn so much more as a movie if they didn't misuse Paul Rudd. It is so hard to misuse Paul Rudd, and they managed to.
Remember, without Paul Rudd, we don't beat Thanos. Just remember that. Anyway, point being, Judd Apatow's involved in producing it in a producing capacity, and that's how we get Jim Carrey. Again, Chris Farley has left the project reluctantly at this point because he's stuck doing Black Sheep. Again, he definitely still wanted to be part of the movie, but clearly, there was a point. And Jim Carrey's in there now. Studio refused to let Judd Apatow direct, but they were looking at Ben Stiller post the Ben Stiller show. So Ben Stiller had some creative juices flowing here. It's like, hey, we want Ben Stiller. So Ben Stiller wanted to do the movie as a satire of Cape Fear. And that's where we get the dark. That's where we begin to get the black comedy aspect. And then Jim Carrey kind of piggybacked off that, wanting to again kind of shove Ace Ventura 2 to the side and do something like the show that he has range. So that's where we kind of get on like the whole black comedy kind of wagon there.
Sure.
So it was the perfect storm. So the problem here is that the studio was still marketing this thing. They picked up the script. And they had to bid and pay a lot of money for that original, like the lighthearted Chris Farley buddy comedy script. So the whole, as far as they're concerned, they're still seeing, and their Act One essentially is still the buddy comedy movie, but now there's like foreshadows.
Right. Yeah, it's kind of like it does kind of like slowly build up into that sort of darkness for sure.
Oh yeah. So studio's marketing it completely wrong, which you can see how that might lead to a problem.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, so it's not the. So basically, it's now the clever, it's now the clever satire and dark comedy that it is.
Sorry. Okay. Little Blue saying, if we had a film starring Chris Farley and Jim Carrey, it would be beyond insane comedy. Yeah, it probably would be. Let's see. Chris Farley could play comedically intimidating characters that scream a lot well. I mean, that's true, but that's still not inherently like Jim Carrey and the Cable Guy just has like just such a menace to him, but not in an over the top way, in like a realistic kind of like unsettling, get under your skin kind of way. And I just, as much as I really do like Chris Farley, obviously, like as a comedic actor, he's one of the greats, but I don't think he had that much range to him like Carey does in this movie. Anyways,
yeah. So, point being, again, this movie's mismarketed as like it's still a lighthearted buddy comedy, when really, in reality, it's the clever satire, dark comedy that it is. So there was a lot of attention because Jim Carrey, at this point in the media, everyone heard that Jim Carrey got paid $20 million up front for this movie. Like Chris Farley was offered like $300,000. Jim Carrey's offered like $20 million up front, and the gross. So this was kind of historic at the time. So a lot of people are like, "Oh man, the Cable Guy, the next Jim Carrey movie," and like I wonder what it'll be.
Uh-huh.
So a lot of cuts got made in the process of the movie. Where basically what they did throughout the movies, they shot a light version and a dark version of scenes. That, however, the studio didn't really have a lot of. They didn't dictate how they wanted. They just kind of had it ready, and they kind of picked scenes kind of accordingly based on that. So, but they did cut like some of the really dark stuff. Like there was an extra scary nightmare. Steven like almost killed Chip a couple times in the movie, like very brutally almost. We kind of see the start of some of those scenes.
The way that Jim Carrey pronounces the name Steven just
Steven
haunts my mind. It haunts my nightmares, Dragon.
So a movie came out. It wasn't technically a flop, but it was like with the advertising and Jim Carrey's payment factored in, it's like it really did. It was like the first movie that underperformed with Jim Carrey.
It's funny because it still made like $500 million, which like adjusted for inflation, that's really good. And like nowadays, not adjusted for inflation, 500 million is like, hey, we're halfway to $1 billion, baby. We're looking good. But yeah, that just goes to show the power that Jim Carrey had back then, that even something like that could be considered like, oh, well, this is a flop, kind of.
Like that's the thing. It wasn't that it was like, for example, day one, it did great. First week, I guess, like it did great, but then there was a big drop off, and it didn't make the Jim Carrey money. Like, it didn't get the repeat viewings that Jim Carrey movies typically got. Anyway, of course, years later becomes a cult hit. People really like it, as our viewing audience might attest to, and here we are.
Okay. All right, so yeah, I think a good place to start is what you mentioned up front, where basically like the movie is like that first act, it really is like a slow burn into like, I think on some level when Chip first shows up, like there's something kind of instantly a little off about him, but like it's kind of that Punch Drunk Love thing, right? Where it's kind of like he's just essentially playing the stereotypical Jim Carrey character, but he's playing the stereotypical Jim Carrey character as if he existed in the real world, and it's less so about how he's playing him and more so about how Nathan, or not Nathan Lane, I'm sorry, Matthew Broderick.
Wrong producer, Tiki.
The
Wrong
two of them are
producer.
spiritually linked at the hip. I'm sorry.
Wrong producer and/or Lion King alumni.
But yeah, it's the way that Matthew Broderick is reacting to it more so that I think makes it just the slightest bit unsettling in the first act. Would you say that's accurate?
Well, yeah, it's funny you mentioned that, Tiki, because again, the lisp, the character of Chip. So the cable guy is. So basically, the lisp and the kind of the whole Steven of it all. That's coming from Dickie Peterson from In Living Colors, this character that Jim Carrey did. So it's almost as if we're taking kind of like, you're right, we're taking the persona of a very like, at first glance, you would think Chip is like, okay, maybe he's kind of like, what if we took the opening of Ace Ventura, we have like the deranged UPS guy? What if we took a kind of a guy with a job like that and gave him kind of an In Living Color or Ace Ventura-esque kind of slant? But you're right. We play him kind of straight, and in the real world, how again it's something a little disquieting about that. You know, it's like, what if we took a skit, but the skit never ended?
Exactly.
You know, that's the interesting thing there. But
like, what if the wild and crazy guys existed in real life and they were really problematic?
Well, yeah. So real quick, just with Act 1 overall, I really want to highlight this just in terms of like Ben Stiller's storyteller here, okay? Because he directed the heck out of this. Now, obviously, he only got better over time, as we know. But even the little touches here. So the opening, very solid. It's really got condensed exposition that I really like. You know, we have like the call from Steven's buddy Rick, played by Jack Black, young Jack Black, who tells us, Steven essentially basically spots in a phone call. Okay, so he's kicked out by his girlfriend Robin. He moves into a new place and he's waiting for the cable guy. Three simple plot points we exchange in a phone call. We also have like the fritzing of the TV, which gives us some foreshadows to the Sam Sweet trial. We're flipping through channels, and also we land on My Three Sons, which is also a bit of a plot thing.
Okay, a couple of things to unpack there with Stiller's directing style. So the flickering of the technology is definitely a Ben Stiller thing with Severance. I mean, obviously, like with just the nature of that show, it's like it's glitching out and doing all kinds of weird things with the editing all the time. Honestly, for me, the most Severance coded thing in the whole movie is that plot line that you mentioned, is the child star on trial. It's not necessarily that it's related to anything that actually happens in Severance. It's just how that plot line is interacting with the rest of the plot. Because with Severance, you've got a lot of, like, obviously just by the nature of what Severance is, where you've essentially got two different characters for each character, even though they're technically the same person, so there's a lot of disparate plot lines. And I feel like the way that we worked this one into the movie almost in like a diegetic way you would work a song into a movie diegetically. Like, that is a very Ben Stiller thing for sure. And also just the economic dialogue. Like, Dragon, honestly, Dragon, if you watch the first like 20 minutes of Severance, like, that show has an insanely complicated premise. It's a really hard premise to just like explain to people, just using using your words. That's a very awkward way to put that, but whatever. Like for example, when I was trying to explain it to you on Movie Memoirs, it's hard to verbalize. That's the word I'm looking for. It's hard to verbalize the premise of Severance. But just watching the first 20 minutes of Severance, you understand everything that you need to know. And you're like, okay, like, I am locked in. This is fascinating. Let's go. Let's see where we go with it. So I definitely think, like, economic use of screen time, economic use of dialogue, that's also very much a Ben Stiller staple.
Yeah. So a few other things too that factor is really impressive. So again, in terms of regarding Chip's character, is kind of the tone of the movie, where it's kind of taking what we're used to with Jim Carrey, but then just kind of like adding kind of like the depth. So I love that right from the get go. I love that Chip Douglas is this cable guy who is like it's such a great meeting of them where he's the momentary delay and just knocking on the door after Steven's waited for 4 hours, and he's the one who's offended. That's a great idea for just like the meet cute. But here's the thing: so Chip again on the surface, again, kind of like kind of Ace Ventura adjacent, or in living classic Jim Carrey caricature, just kind of the charisma of the performance. That kind of, he's a wonderfully weird guy. Now we get his backstory.
He's a weird guy. We don't necessarily get the wonderfully part,
right? Well, I'm just saying that Chip does have a charisma about him.
Like Stanley Ipkiss. Stanley Ipkiss is just like a lovable everyman who's also kind of a dweeb, also kind of, he's got his eccentricities to him, but he's very relatable. This guy, I mean, you're right. There's a magneticism to him a little bit, but like, I think Matthew Broderick picks up pretty quickly that this guy is going to, at least on like a parasocial, like not respecting boundaries level, he's gonna be a problem.
No. I'm not saying that he doesn't, Tiki. I'm saying we see it. Chip charms everyone, or at least has like a position of power over. But he charms his family later on.
That's true.
Like,
that's true.
That's what I mean. That's
he does weaponize it. You're right. You're right about that.
And also, it's with the parasocial thing, Tiki. That's the thing we see later on during the medieval times, and even leading up to that. It's the fact that, like, Stephen very logically is trying to break things off, as he should. But again, Chip just there's like that little nicety, and Chip kind of senses that. And this is what I'm about to get to in the portrayal of Chip here. So with Chip, again, we add like the layers of kind of sadness. And again, we keep it subtle, but it's there. And we do have one flashback, and it's a very impactful flash. So basically, here's what we learn about Chip's backstory. So his mom essentially is looking for dates, aka kind of sugar daddies, to support a single mom.
Is it fair to say that we can kind of draw a Charlie Kelly parallel a little bit?
I mean,
maybe not that extreme, but kind of in the same ballpark.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's more like single mom going out on dates versus what Charlie's mom actually.
Right. But still, a similar sort of like trauma and neglect.
Similar. So that's basically the TV, and we pay this off very big by the end. I love how I completely forgot. I always thought it was a pop culture reference he made at the very end, but when I realized it on this watch, like, oh my god, this is actually a really good bit of dialogue where the TV was literally his babysitter, and later on, like he says somebody has to kill the babies.
In the age of like as soon as the kid is like 2 years old, just put a fucking tablet in front of him with YouTube Kids on it.
Yeah,
that's your babysitter. It's like, again, it's a very ahead of its time idea.
It's like when I was a kid watching this, I didn't pick up on how clever and how really great a payoff the whole like somebody's got to kill the babysitter was for what Chip does at the end. Like that's really great. So the point being, he's this lonely kid without friends, which is where the parasocial thing comes from. Again, like the mom's looking, he says, well, mom has to go out if you want siblings. Again, those siblings are friends that you keep them company while mom's out. Here's what we hint at. We hint that the origin of the lisp is really dark. If you recall this, Steve, is that he kind of jokes about it lightheartedly, but basically there's a line in the movie where he says one of mom's boyfriends kicked him in the face with a steel toe boot.
Oh, yeah, no, I do remember that. Yeah, that is very dark, yeah.
Now, if I were to break that down, it suggests to me, if I overanalyze that, it suggests to me that's where the violent and aggressive, kind of tendencies of Chip that kind of come out in the movie when he kind of turns the screws to Stephen, or even just like even when he's being lighthearted, like with medieval times, that's where it comes from. It's that break, like the moment where that guy kicked him in the face. That's where the break from reality, thanks to TV, happened. He retreated. Like I think like a lot of us to some degree, in times of trauma or crisis or sadness, we retreat. It's escapism. We retreat into the TV to escape reality. Only Chip never was able to break from that. It's like he's fully like that was his babysitter, that was his comfort, that was his safe zone. He just fully went to the TV as the happy place, and that's why he is as screwed up as he is.
For sure.
Yep, and I love the whole that concludes we have like the runners of that concludes our broadcast evening. Click.
All right.
So I guess the inciting incident. So like the gift of friendship here is, again, I love that Jack Black's character basically, tip the cable guy $50, you get all the free channels, and basically, so it's the fact that
Have
it's
you
like
ever heard the thing about like if you check into a casino specifically in Vegas, if you don't even like formally acknowledge it, but you slide a 20 in with your credit card and they'll upgrade your room?
I have heard that. Yes, I still don't think it's real.
I highly doubt in the age where like every casino in Vegas is owned by like one of two companies, I don't think that's a thing anymore. It could
If
have been back in the
I
day.
think between the '80s and the '90s, it might have been a thing, but it's definitely not
Right,
nowadays.
right. Yeah. Anyways.
Anywho, regardless, so he gets the free cable hookup. It's kind of like the whole there's no such thing as a free lunch kind of a thing here, where you get the free cable hookup and he becomes a preferred customer. But again, he again with the parasocial relationship thing, he sees an opening and he takes it. Where he says, "Oh yeah, well you should hang out sometime." Well, I'm kind of busy. What about tomorrow? I mean, what are you doing tomorrow? And he just kind of like slides in there and does like the whole, "La, la, la, I'm not listening," as he runs away. And now he's made the date. So again, structurally, Act One, buddy movie with the underpinning that something menacing might be here that will completely lead to Act Three. Yep.
I love how we set up the satellite. I love how it's like the satellite is like the first major thing that they do together as quote unquote friends. And it's also the set piece for the very menacing finale.
I
And I love
love
how
the
it's kind of like the central symbol of Chip's whole world to an extent.
so the implication is that Chip takes all of his preferred customer pals here.
Mhm.
That is the implication. Because remember, he has later on when Robin's there, he uses the same exact monologue. Like playing Mortal Kombat. you
Mhm,
know,
mhm,
with a friend. So
mhm,
the information superhighway again because he knows like the satellite. This is where circa the '90s. This is like this is where it all emanates from. This is where the lifeblood is. And again, it's also like the Cable Guy being a period of its time, and basically what the whole point of the Sam Sweet trial is it's a funny and satirical idea that still plays today, sad as it is to say. It still plays
mhm.
today. This is the era of the O.J. Simpson trial and, the Menendez brothers. It's kind of a combination of the two. It's basically the media frenzy that O.J. was with kind of like a case that's a parody of the Menendez brothers.
I feel like if anything, like true crime has kind of like almost made us numb to this kind of stuff. Like it's definitely not as like what I'm trying to say, I guess, is each individual case might not get as much media attention as OJ does, but like there's so many cases, you know what I mean? It kind of feels like OJ is like almost kind of like, oh, another celebrity shot his wife. Okay. I mean, granted, that doesn't happen all the time, but like you know what I mean, though.
So I guess this is the point. Is like in the era of the OJ trial, it's like the nation is watching, and because of that, cable is pivotal to the story, which is where Chip kind of gets his power from.
Hmm.
So again, I love just all the things we're mocking here. Again, this is all very relevant to like where we're at. And you and I kind of rant about this all the time in memoirs with the whole like where we are in the serial killer culture and by kind of the media
Hmm.
frenzy where it's like we're beating it with theirs. We see here even we have the TV. The trial's not even
You've
done yet.
definitely
We have
stuck with true crime stuff more than I have in recent years.
true, but that's the thing. So even before the trial's done, we have like the TV movie with Eric Roberts.
Hmm.
You
Right,
know,
right.
which cracked me
Well, I
up
mean,
by
I
the way.
specifically remember before the Lacey Peterson trial was over, there were like multiple Scott Peterson movies, like
Oh god.
multiple ones. Mhm.
Jeez, I think one of the funniest things again. This is mind you, this is like after watching that whole Menendez brother thing that Ryan Murphy did recently, a while back. I love, love how we make fun of we do a direct gag on the Menendez brothers here, where it's like we do the 911 call from Sam Sweet. It's like, and there was a gang of them. And I think they were Asian.
Oh god, oh god,
Hey,
yeah,
of course,
yeah.
that's Ben Stiller playing,
Uh-huh, uh-huh.
playing the brothers or like Big Brother. Anyway, but yeah, it's blurring again. The whole point is that we're blurring the lines between reality and media that's too good to be true, and just the fact that when we sensationalize everything, it's kind of hard to tell the difference. And this is what leads to this creates the future cable boys. that Chips ultimately saves by the end of the movie.
Mhm.
In quotes, but he tries to save. But what do you think of the basketball scene?
Yeah, it's I mean, what I like about it is it's kind of like Chip, sort of like it's his first like infiltration into Steven's world, where it's
Hmm.
like, hey, but you know what I do like about it too is I like how most of the coworkers are charmed by it, but Jack Black, he kind of sees it for what it is. You know what I mean? Like like honestly, I feel like Jack Black clocks the threat of this guy even more so than Broderick does to a certain extent.
Yeah. No, you're right. You know what's funny about this scene?
Mm.
I don't. It sounds too good to be true, honestly. But from what I heard, they had to CG this basketball. Like Jim Carrey
Really? Oh
could
wow.
apparently Jim Carrey couldn't dribble a basketball and act at the same time.
That's funny.
And plus
Mm.
doing all the other stuff that he needs to do with the basketball. But yeah, that's the thing. Apparently the dribbling might have been CG.
Uh-huh.
But I don't know if you look at the ball, the texture does look maybe CG, but it's hard to tell.
I mean, I feel like some of the most impressive CGI work is just those little touches where it's like you're not meant to notice it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I always
Yeah,
love those,
yeah.
love the subtle things,
Uh-huh.
and we've seen it like in the Albuquerque verse, even
Of course, yeah.
here and there. Like for example, I think Banks's black eye because he had an allergic reaction to the makeup. I think they had to CG the black eye on him in the gloves off episode.
There we go. That makes sense. Uh-huh.
Okay. So this is again. Basically, Steven goes to break it off after the basketball scene because he gets all the desperate messages from Chip. Like the 11 or plus messages on the
Mhm.
phone. That's the red flag. But he ends up taking the advice from Robin about Robin, which is like just say you're watching Sleepless in Seattle. Chicks love that movie,
Mhm.
and let me ask you this: do you think the cable going out? Do you think that's entirely? Presumably, that's like Chip was waiting out there to like he set up the date. Do you think he set up the date from the beginning, knowing he would interrupt it, or do you think that happened only because he didn't return his calls?
Oh, I don't know. That's a good question. I kind of feel like Chip's the kind of character that has like a bunch of different contingencies in place depending on the circumstance.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it was probably a contingency for if he didn't return his calls, would be my guess.
Yeah, so basically he does a quid pro quo thing where he restores the cable, which seems to be like really just like a
Exactly.
fuse box thing. Like he just basically turned it off and turned it on. I love the cable. My favorite stupid joke in the whole thing, by the way, it's very simple, but I think it's funny. Well, what's the cable for? Just dramatic effect.
Uh-huh. Right, right.
Well, here's the thing. I bring that up because in the selection of our poster here again, I thought, well, we got to bring
I
up,
was gonna say, like in a
yeah,
movie that was like a little, like in a Wayne's World movie, for example, the line totally would have been like, "And it makes a cool poster shot too."
but that's the thing is, cable guy. How do you represent cable aside from the uniform? Well, he's got to be holding the
Exactly,
cable.
exactly, right.
I love how we made it menacing though, because the cables have that little spike in them. So I love that we kind of
Sure,
made the
sure.
spike. That's great.
Now I just want to see someone like edit this with like instead of the big cable thing, it's just like an Ethernet cord or something.
That would be. Oh, by the way, speaking of which, do you remember watching the Super Bowl ad with the cable guy? They brought Jim Carrey back to play the cable guy.
Oh shit! I do remember that. I haven't
Hmm.
watched it since I watched the movie though.
Yeah, still good. I like it.
Uh-huh.
Anyway, so because I mean, hey,
People
nailed
shit
all
on
the.
that ET commercial for being like pandering, but I'm like, or being like nostalgia bait.
Oh,
But I'm like, that is the kind of nostalgia bait that we need, motherfuckers.
that's what I'm saying. Isn't it better to get something of the best quality in 5 minutes versus something that's
Exactly.
stretching for
Yeah.
material? They are essentially. I don't know how official it is, but they've already announced like Beetlejuice 3. All right, like come on.
Oh, it's official. It's
Yeah,
definitely
that's a
official.
thing.
Yeah.
There you go.
Which I mean, I feel like we kind of knew it. Like, if anything else, just to have the title of Beetlejuice, Beetlejuice, Beetlejuice.
Yeah.
I swear to God, if that's not the title, then
Well,
heads
they
are gonna
had. Come
roll.
on. Okay, so let's talk about some medieval times. Believe it or not,
Medieval Times is probably my favorite scene in the whole movie. Honestly,
so
it gets me, man. It gets me on like a very visceral level.
medieval times was Jim Carrey's pitch.
Okay, okay.
So yeah, it's a very fun set piece. Again,
You
by
know
the
what would
way,
have made it even better? And I've thought about this ever since I saw the movie.
what?
Like, I mean, I don't hate Andy Dick as much as some people do, but could you imagine David Spade in that same role?
God.
Right? Right? Where like it's like he's full of himself, but he's not actually cool. You know what I mean? I don't know. I just think it'd be a perfect David Spade performance. And like I said, I'm not someone who hates on Andy Dick. I really don't. But you know, I don't know what could have been though. Anyways,
Oh,
I mean, I thought about that because you specifically brought up David Spade.
well, yeah, you know, it's fun. I learned this and then doing some research. Apparently, Penelope Spears just doesn't care for David Spade.
Apparently, who does? Sorry.
Penelope Spears, the one who did Wayne's World.
Oh, really?
Well, here's why. The first Wayne's World.
Uh-huh.
Here's why. Because she did Black Sheep, and she just didn't care for him that much. That's why in that movie, which one of the reasons the movie stinks, is that she separated him as much as she could in the movie.
Oh man.
Yeah, it's just very, very telling. Are you sure?
Interesting.
Yeah, so you know what's funny? Andy Dick, you're right. You know,
Andy Dick
he
is
basically.
usually the one who's got like the bad reputation.
It's funny that you know Andy Dick, he's so unrecognizable as like the king.
He is. Yeah, yeah. I
Anyway,
don't know.
did you?
Like the Cusco energy that I'm kind of getting. I just think David Spade would crush it.
Well, I think. Look, I think David Spade's underrated. I don't think we give him enough good stuff to work with. Like, for example, you put David Spade in like a Severance-ish kind of situation.
Oh, I would. Oh my God. Oh,
You see what I?
Stiller. Ben Stiller. I know you're listening to this podcast right now, Ben Stiller. I know you're listening to this.
Yeah,
podcast.
say the full name just in case you didn't get
You
the first
can't fool me, Ben. Or should I call you Benjamin?
Benji.
Put David Spade in Severance. Oh my God, David Spade would. Oh, he would fit in so well to Severance.
But you see what I mean, though. The idea that we take a comedic actor who has range. Again, I love it when we can put a comedian in a dramatic situation, or like see the dramatic chops, or something along those lines. And I think David Spade, again, I think he can lend himself to that.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
You know. Anyway, so with Medieval, I love that Janine Garofalo plays the waitress. By the way, I think that's really funny.
Yeah, for sure, for sure.
You know, Colette from Ratatouille, just throwing it out there.
Of course, I know who she is.
Okay, so
Icon of 90s comedy.
Good, just making sure. You know, Mystery Man, all that.
Right.
Anyway,
Mystery Man, I believe was also Ben Stiller. From
Well, yeah. wait. Do you mean directed by Ben Stiller? I don't know.
No. Wasn't that Barry Sonnenfeld?
No, it wasn't Sonnenfeld.
Hold on, I'm gonna look it up now.
It definitely wasn't Sonnenfeld. I will promise you that.
Okay. Mystery.
If it was Stiller, I'd be amazed by that.
I think it might have been.
We'll see. He's absolutely in it. I know that much.
Oh no, it's Kinka Usher. Who the hell is Kinka Usher? Oh my God, is this literally the? Yeah, Mystery Men is literally the only movie that he's ever done. That's funny. Okay, I'm sorry. That was a rabbit hole. Anyways, you there? Oh God, Dragon. Oh boy. Okay. I thought it was something on my end, but it's something on Dragon's end. Okay. Hopefully he will be back. Eli, if you're still there, we actually did have a debate about if we wanted to include Sonic the Hedgehog in the Jim Carrey retrospectives. I don't think we're going to do Sonic. I don't, like, we'd have to be kind of like, I'm not calling the Sonic movies bottom of the barrel, but as far as like being Jim Carrey vehicles, I think it'd be a little bit bottom of the barrel just because Jim Carrey's not the main character in them. He might be the main attraction that people have, but he's not the main character. Horde and Here's a Who, though, there's definitely more of an argument for doing Horde and Here's a Who. I would say, though, we probably want to hold off on getting to the voice acting stuff until we go through most of the major live action stuff. And there's certainly a lot of other stuff that we have to get to, like I mean, we haven't touched Bruce Almighty yet. We haven't gotten to the Majestic. We haven't gotten. I mean, there's a lot of kind of like classic live action Jim Carrey stuff that we have yet to get to. I would say maybe a couple more. I mean, honestly, like, what other voice work has Jim Carrey? I mean, obviously, there's a series of unfortunate events too. I forget if we probably covered that on a Nickelodeon Movie Month. Dragon, we covered a series of unfortunate events on Nickelodeon Movie Month, right?
Yes, we did.
That's what I thought.
Well,
Okay.
we covered it either for an anniversary or for Nickelodeon Movie Month. I don't know which one it was, but we did talk about the movie, yes.
Did you hear the very underwhelming answer to who directed Mystery Men?
Yes, it was Usher.
No, it wasn't the Usher. It was just Kinka Usher.
Yeah, Kinka Usher.
Yeah, it's literally a Reddit mystery what happened to this guy. He directed one movie and then bounced.
Well, here's what I was trying to say. Fun fact about Mystery Men.
Mm-hmm.
It's where we get All Star.
Oh no, you're right. You're right. Yeah, that is a good trivia question. It is the first All-Star needle drop. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Remember
most people would probably say Shrek.
Remember the big three movies you get All-Star in. You get the Mystery Man is where there's the origin point. Then you get Inspector Gadget, then Shrek. Anyway,
you know what? I think All-Star is kind of like the good version of Who Let the Dogs Out.
Yeah.
Like every time All-Star comes on, even now, I'm just like, hell yeah, that was a fucking great song.
It's
that
the best
song
part.
defined the time.
I Will Die on This Hill is the best part of the Shrek movie.
The original Shrek movie, I don't know if
I think it's the introduction to Shrek. I feel is still really strong.
No, it's great. It's great. I'm very partial to Farquaad, so it's hard to say it's hard for me to say it's the best scene in Shrek, but it's up there for sure. Just as far as like editing and artistic, it's easily the most iconic scene from the first Shrek movie. And then but you know, Who Let the Dogs Out, which honestly I think was abused even more than All-Star was, frankly.
Oh yeah.
And it's just like every time that comes up, it's just like, oh god. Oh, I can't believe that was fucking omnipresent on the radio. Anyways, also Code Geass was asking about Horton Hears a Who as far as when we're covering it. I gave the answer that like we'll probably cover it after we it probably won't be next year because we've still got quite a few. You know, like we haven't touched stuff like Bruce Almighty. You know, we haven't touched any of his 2000 stuff yet. I'm sure there's probably a couple 90s films that we haven't gotten to yet as well. So, like, I think there's at least a couple seasons of Jim Carrey stuff that we can still get through.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if eventually we work our way into, like, I think stuff like Horton Hears a Who is more realistic for us to do in this series than like the Sonic the Hedgehog movies. That's kind of where I land.
That I would also. I mean, he's the star of Horton Hears a Who.
Exactly. Yeah. If we ever do a Christmas Carol, which we probably will, it will most likely be for seasonal shenanigans and not attached to this. But we'll probably. I mean, we've been kicking around a Christmas Carol for seasonal.
I mean, let's just say I don't want to confirm it. I've been campaigning for it, but we might be doing a certain Halloween Jim Carrey movie this year. But we'll see how that goes.
All right.
Again, I would like to do it. I don't know if it's gonna be in the cards, since it sounds like we have an excess of stuff to do. But we'll see.
Do I know it?
Well, I've told you, but you don't remember anything. So
just fucking tell me what it is.
Well, Once Bitten.
That's an early one. It must be, right?
It came out in 80. I want to say it came out in 85.
85, yeah, that's a very early one. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, yeah, we'll definitely see. All right.
Yeah.
Anyways.
Okay, so back to medieval times.
Mm-hmm.
Again, we see how pop culture savvy the Chip is. We have like the gag, the Silence of the Lamb gag, which again, another improv, which is just perfect. Just
the fact that Chip bases his whole life around pop culture is just like it feels like a call out to me. Because Dragon, as you know, like I struggle with this. Like even to this day, I genuinely struggle with like if I'm in a room full of people that I don't know, or even that I know but I don't know well. I genuinely don't know how to socialize with people outside of talking about pop culture.
See, you and I are of like two sides of the same coin on that. Where my mind is a patchwork of pop culture, but I'm more glass half full on that. You're more glass half empty on that. We're both joined at the hip in terms of pop culture being our defining trait, but you seem to be more pessimistic about it.
Well, I'm pessimistic about it because it's like if I meet someone, like for me, it's like I'm so entrenched in pop culture that it's almost like a language for me. And if I meet someone that just doesn't give a shit, it's almost like I'm literally speaking a different language.
I mean, as long as you don't bring a vacuum, I'm sure it'll be fine.
Oh God. I mean, don't right. I mean, don't get me started on like Dragon. If I find someone in the wild who like knows what Epic Universe is, for example, like it's over. Like game over. Like you are my best friend for life now. Anyways.
Anyway.
Right.
Was that all right? But yeah, the Silence of the Lamb gag is also really funny too. He just like puts like the chicken skin on his face, which again, that's an improv, which is just it just still really lands. Hello, Clarice. It's good to see you again. Fun action set piece with basically he bribed the knights with cable, so he's got free reign of the place, and this is where we're seeing like the mixture of it's there's some fun, but there's also genuine danger here. Again, he has no basis on reality and consequence where they're battling each other.
It's kind of that punch drunk love thing, It's like I could totally see this exact same scenario playing out in just an average Jim Carrey comedy, and it just being like all for the yucks, all for the big elaborate comedy pratfalls, and there's no sense of danger. This incorporates that sense of danger.
I love that. I love that it's like again, it's creeping. We're in like Act 2 now, and it's like it's creeping in more and more as we build the 3.
Mm-hmm.
So, I also one of my other favorite bits of the movie. I love the fact because Ben Stiller apparently is a huge Star Trek fan. I love that we do like the battle, or we do like the Kirk and Spock battle, and he's like we're playing the same exact music from it, which to be fair is like even not being like a huge Star Trek fan at all. I can easily say that is like the coolest piece of music in all of Star Trek. They played that.
Is it the same music that like Family Guy used with the fight scene cutaway gag?
One of them, I think. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's just really cool. And also, I love it. Like we see Chip, like he's got some moves there with the scimitar thing.
He does, yeah.
Okay, so the conflict again is Steven's trying to add boundaries, but Chip he doubles down with extravagant gifts and the karaoke party. And again, because he can sense the weakness in like the guy like putting up some walls, so he worms his way in there, which is how the parasocial thing works. He senses like, anyway, it's just, he can kind of sense it. That's how he gets his hooks into him.
Mm-hmm.
And let's see. So we have the. By the way, I love this detail. I love that at the karaoke party, we see that a lot of the preferred customers they come back and they're like spies of Chip. Like the cop that arrests Steven is one of the preferred customers. And by the way,
it's almost like a fucking kingpin situation, It's like you don't know like who's working for him.
You know what's really heady about the cop that arrests him? One of the guards from Silence of the Lambs who we just referenced.
That's true. Yeah,
he is. He's the one Hannibal Lecter beats the crap out of and strings up like the moth.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, so so I love the break here where Chip does something he thinks is nice. He sets Steven up. I still really think it's really. I don't know if it's just a me thing and a relationship thing. I don't know. I still think it's just bizarre that you're kind of in a relationship with somebody. She kicks you out for honestly, I think, a really petty reason. But let's just not. I don't want to go down that rabbit hole. The point being, the whole he proposes, and she says, "You know what? It's just the fact that you've said that you really love me. I'm not just going to say no. I'm just going to kick you out." And then it's like, we should see other people despite, we're on the road of maybe getting back together. We still like each other, obviously, but we should date. The whole dating other people while still kind of being in a relationship, that I still can't wrap my mind around.
The open relationship thing, which is like, I don't even want to like touch that right now.
Well, it's not. As
I am very much out of the dating game right now. I kind of don't give a shit. Well, but it's definitely it's definitely something for sure.
It's not, now here's the thing, it's not an open relationship. It's like it's the fact that, again, like we're on the track to getting back together, but in the meantime, we're going to see that's seeing other people versus an open relationships. We're together, but we can see other people, but we're still like, this is permitted by both parties. This is like,
Mhm.
no, we're kind of together. I'm going to do what I want. So
Right.
like
Yeah.
that, I don't get that. I can never. I don't know if that's a movie. It's the thing with the movie, or it's just the thing I just can't wrap my mind around. Regardless, um, so Chip ends up trying to do Steven a solid, sets him up with what we reveal to be a prostitute, and that's the last straw for Steven. Kicks him out, and Chip makes up for it by axing the competition and has a little talk with Robin. So the way he axes the competition is rather dark and rather awesome. So we have Owen Wilson having a brief cameo in the movie. I
Wow, I'm here for a very brief cameo.
here's a Ben Stiller. Here's a Ben Stiller question for you. Okay.
Uh,
Do you think there's secretly like a narrative in all the Ben Stiller movies where that both he and Owen Wilson appear and that he just secretly really doesn't like Owen Wilson?
I mean, I don't know.
No,
That's
I'm
kind of
saying think about all the
it's a
times you
fun
see Owen.
idea. It's a fun idea.
I'm just saying, because he's always the competition or the guy that like that the Ben Stiller character is insanely jealous of, or like, again, like he's in the in Starsky and Hutch. It's kind of like the Toy Story thing where they're rivals and then become best buddies.
Mhm.
Like kind of like. Yeah, but beyond that, meet the parents. He's always he's the ex boyfriend that he's jealous of. It's.
Right, yeah.
And this is kind of like Ben Stiller. Like, yeah, Jim, just beat the crap out of him in the bathroom. Yeah.
Sure, I can see that. Yeah.
Which, by the way, also kind of a karmic payoff where this came out right before Liar Liar beats this guy up in the bathroom, beats himself up in the bathroom.
Oh God, you're right. Yeah.
I love the jazzy score to the bathroom beat. I love such a dark act, but it's still done so jazzy and kind of campy and fun.
And again, it's hard for me to see the bathroom beat up scene, any sort of bathroom beat up, and not compare it to Breaking Bad.
Yeah, well, just what if Walt just slammed his head into like the hand dryer?
Oh man.
Okay, so Act 3, we have the break. I guess the turning point, the breakup in the rain, which I always love the staging of this. It's like it's wet, it's rainy, and we kind of call this back in the nightmare. Again, Steven, he's very grown up here. He cuts ties, says, "You don't have room in my life for another friend right now." And then we have, "No big deal." Where
That's honestly one of my favorite Jim Carrey deliveries in the whole movie. Just that
no big deal.
Oh man.
Honestly, in this movie, I think it's no big deal. Cable guy.
Yeah, right.
So Chip, as you can imagine, Chip doesn't take rejection well.
Not particularly, no.
It is scary how much Chip upends Steven's life in Act 3. It really is.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
I mean, scarily realistic, honestly.
Well, think about it.
Not necessarily realistic, but just it. I shouldn't say realistic because it's really not, but it's almost kind of like a cautionary tale, right? It's almost kind of like a fucking Aesop's fable or something.
Yeah, don't ghost the grasshopper around the winter.
Oh God, right.
But yeah, so think about this. The bullet point, he arrests him for stolen. Steven gets arrested for stolen goods. Mm-hmm. Which, by the way, here's my no joke. This is gonna sound really random.
Oh, are we gonna get into the whole Jim Carrey gets arrested in every Jim Carrey movie? Or, well, no, I mean, not he. Obviously, he's not the one being arrested, but like jail is a reoccurring thing.
Yep. No, I was gonna bring up something else. This is really random. Okay, I can't tell you why. I have no good reason why. I don't know why. It's just this line has always. It's not a Jim Carrey line. This line has always stuck with me. I've always found it really funny. This is the kudos to Ben Stiller, I'd like to think, or Judd Apatow, who I believe Judd Apatow did a lot of the writing on this, but he didn't get credit. He got credit as producer. So technically, he did all the rewrites on this, and then punched up with Jim Carrey here and there with like some of the improvisation. Anyway. I love George Segal here. From the Goldbergs.
Sure.
He says, I believe he plays Steven's father. He says, "You're killing your mother with this." I love that line. I don't know why. I love the way he says it, and the fact that he says it more than once. It just feels like such a great, weird line for him to say.
Yeah, I feel it. I feel it.
I just
Yeah.
wanted to throw that out there because I'll never have another chance to talk about it ever again.
Right. Right.
Okay, so yeah, so again, Chip cleverly though he had a thing where I could always say the stuff I bought was stolen, or I could basically I repurpose it, and I would have let him get away with it until until he turned on me and I put the screws to him.
Mhm.
Now we have the spy, the fact that Chip set up cables and everything in his house so he could record Steven's private conversation with Robin, which ends up getting him fired because he's talking crap about the boss.
Mhm.
And then we have the porno password scene.
Oh boy.
So we visit the visit Steven's family, and Chip is like wearing like the Perry Como look. He again the fact that again he's obsessed with TV. He's dressed like a sitcom character.
Mhm. Mhm.
I love that basically Chip is like a demented Kramer of sorts in terms of like how he's constructed his personality.
I could totally see that. Yeah, just kind of like he fancies himself a Kramer, but like really he's more of just a creep, you know. He doesn't have
Exactly.
again, it's like that whole like Jim Carrey character in real life thing, you know. It's just like he doesn't have the sauce. He doesn't have the courage to be Cosmo Kramer.
So few do.
Right.
Oh, I'm gonna shout this out. We don't need to talk about it, but I just want to. Michael Richards is a really good autobiography. I think people
Well,
should
let's
read.
not let's not praise Michael Richards too
No,
much.
they talk. He covers it though. A lot of times, past He's
Okay, I mean, fair. Yeah, no, you're right. You're right. A lot of time has.
and that's
It's
the
still
point.
not.
Like
It's still not a
he's
good
no.
look. It's still not a good look.
All right. Okay.
Sorry,
Anyway,
I'm just saying.
I'm just saying the book is really good. All right.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
I'm not saying you have to say the man is automatically good. The book is good.
All right. Fair enough. Fair enough.
It's a good read.
All right.
Anyway, so porno password. Basically making him look bad. Ultimately, he's making him look bad in front of his family. Initially embarrassing him, and then basically goading him into a fight in front of his family, which is the ultimate like. Everything Chip's doing boils down to this excellent line. I think one of the great chilling lines of the movie. I can be your best friend or your worst enemy.
Oh yeah. Oh, that is one of the most iconic lines of the movie for sure. Yeah.
I love he visits him in the prison to tell him in the jail to tell him this, and we have I believe the improvised Midnight Express gag.
Mhm, mhm.
Oh, Billy.
Oh God.
So gotta be honest, that was my first exposure to that gag. I knew it felt vaguely familiar, but I never knew why is that so familiar? The "Oh Billy" line. That's like I found out. Oh, that's what that's a reference to.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
Let's see. So Rick reveals that Chip's, his rap sheets for stalking clients. The fact he basically gets jobs with various cable companies before they fire him and catch on to what he's doing. And he has different TV aliases for all of his characters, including like Larry Tate, the boss from My Three Sons.
I do like that. And I like that I like that none of them are obvious. You know what I mean? I like that
Yeah.
he kind of uses the deep cut
Well,
characters.
he did use George Jetson, so.
George Jefferson.
Oh, You sure it was Jefferson? I thought it was Jetson.
I don't think it was Jetson. I think it was Jefferson.
Okay, well, either way, it's good then.
Yeah, yeah.
Regardless, yeah. So it's and then we have the nightmare, which, by the way, in terms of the framing of the movie, in terms of like the visual kind of direction, the cinematography of the movie, I love the peephole framing of the nightmare, where we see like Steven like looking up through the peephole and just him like bye. See, trying to look like he's walking a great distance. He just keeps ramming that door. And then we have like the cool, demented 70s music as he bursts through the door and he has like the Incredible Hulk contact lenses in.
Mhm.
And it's weird because this is like a weird choice where if you look at what he's wearing, initially it looks like he's just wet from the rain scene because that was on Steven's mind. If you really look at it, though, you freeze frame it, he's wearing like a weird snakeskin sequence kind of outfit to look like the rain.
Right, right.
It's trippy. Yeah, so apparently like the one of the lead scenes were like he had like a staticky kind of like weird like almost like that scene from The Abyss, the James Cameron, the Abyss thing where it had like the weird like water effect, but it was like cable static and Jim Carrey's face.
Yeah, I could see that. I could
And
see
they
that.
actually used that in like a music video for like the like Italian music video for the movie.
Uh-huh.
All right, let's see. So so again, it's just a twisted way Chip. He's building friendship and companionship. With the upbringing through his love of TV. So he's done this, and that brings us to the satellite climax.
Oh boy, yeah.
Hit him with it, Tiki. Tell him about how cool the climax is.
Well, I mean, again, my favorite part of it is just how it, how it just, it's such a good foreshadow. It's such good setup and payoff. Just visually, I mean, I feel like this is like Ben Stiller just really has the sauce in this moment, right? Just like, I mean, everything's kind of firing on all cylinders here visually.
He's got the sauce.
I don't know why I'm like adopting that so hard.
You are, it's.
You know me, Dragon. Out of the two of us, I'm always the one that kind of picks up on the modern lingo.
Yeah, you're Steve Buscemi, all right.
God, yes.
What up, kids?
That slaps. All right.
Anyway. The only thing make it better is if it would be hilarious if David Hyde Pierce read from like a book of Ebonics or something. Wouldn't it just be hysterical?
Oh, no.
Okay, so we have the battle in the rains, very well shot. How it's pulling up in the satellite dish, and again we've taken I love how we've taken it's very mundane from a distance. Just as people on a satellite dish, but you look at it in context, though. Again, we've taken like this lighthearted, like, oh, we're gonna go to the satellite dish, and it's just completely like it's operatic, and he's like humming his own theme music. He's making it as exciting as he possibly could, just kind of calling it out. He's had a complete break from reality at this point. Oh, one of the dark things they cut out, by the way, I just wanted to throw this in there. Originally he killed Jack Black in one of the original cuts in the movie.
All right, I'm glad. It's funny because like the darkness thing is like, I feel like it is a balancing act, right? And I feel like this film just kind of goes like right to that edge. I definitely think killing off Jack Black would have been going over the edge.
So here are the three darkest things they cut from the movie. So one, you'll notice that Chip is armed with a staple gun, like he's holding out the Robin's head and everything in the movie, right?
Oh no, it's like the demented version of the Office Space character.
Yes, my staple. So originally that's how he found Robin or something. Well, not how point being, after Rick calls Steven, eventually Chip found his way to Rick, and I guess during the nightmare scene, he found his way to Rick and he killed him with the staple gun. Mm-hmm. There was that earlier in the parking garage, and this one, there's a debate for them keeping this one in the movie, but you kind of see the lead up to it. In the parking garage, Chip is kind of taunting him right after he gets fired, and Steven actually hit Chip with the car, so they cut that part out.
Okay. Yeah, right.
And then lastly, I guess this one they cut for the best because it wouldn't have made a lot of sense, just dramatic, kind of like pacing wise. But he and Steven got into a fight on the way to the satellite dish, and basically Steven grabbed the rock and he was about to cave Chip's head in with the rock. Very biblical, But then obviously he didn't kill him in that moment because then we don't have a third act. But the point being, things got really dark along the way, and we made cuts with Ambrose to this operatic, kind of like more dazzling finale, in which we had one of the great jokes, which was completely improvised. Steven punches Chip, and for a moment he loses the lisp.
Uh-huh.
Like, Steven, my lisp is gone.
Oh my God!
You son of a! It's great. He's gone full King Kong by the end of this.
Right, exactly. That's a good comparison, and very appropriate given the the pop culture hyperfixation of it all.
Yeah, that's the thing is he's taking the girl. I love that, but when he gets there, he has no plan. Like, what do we do from here? I honestly don't know. Yeah. So now this is a. Okay, I don't keep bringing up like behind the scenes stuff. This one's actually important. So, kind of like with Dumb and Dumber, and often you get a sense Jim Carrey he has a lot of make or break input on the endings of his movies. So he had a very different ending in mind for this. Maybe not very different, but he had Jim Carrey wanted the character to die. Like we noticed, we do the fake out. Originally, he was supposed to actually be impaled on the satellite dish.
Uh-huh.
That's what the Apatow ending was. Well, it's hard to know.
Honestly, when I saw that satellite dish and when I saw the scenario, I kind of had that in my head a little bit. Like, is that the direction we're going?
Well, that's the thing. So Jim Carrey wanted him to die as like a redemptive act, which I honestly, this is the weird thing. I don't want him to die, but by the same token, though, when I hear that and I look at it,
I don't know, man. I kind of think that would have been,
that would have
been a good, a good kind of conclusion, because it's like I kind of feel like, although granted, we do have to talk about the ending, because I
Yeah.
do like the open-endedness of the ending that we do get, and it's a little darker than what Carey was pitching too. So
So that's the thing. So it sounds like I forget if Apatow pitched like he lives at the end, but Jim Carrey is the one who wanted him. Like, when he does the leap, he should be impaled on the salad dish in order to say that, to redeem himself for the bad stuff that he's done to Stephen and Robin, and also the noble act in his own demented mind to save all the little cable boys by killing the babysitter, which I love. And honestly, having him dying in the pursuit of that, I think would have been stronger. And that's the weird thing where maybe it lot from a story perspective, it seems like he should die.
uh-huh.
I don't know if it was ultimately because it would have been too dark. I mean, there's a good chance that was it. But yeah, I mean, I like the ending that we have, but that ending does feel like it might have been better.
I don't know. I am honestly, Dragon. I kind of lean more towards like I really like open-ended dark endings. So like I'm kind of leaning a little bit more towards the ending that we do have, just because I feel like it just kind of fits more with my sort of personal taste.
It is, look, it does work. I mean, for years I have not had a problem with this ending. This is like a recent thing
I
where I
mean, I
never
just
knew
I
that.
really like the kind of like dark, kind of like full circle nature. Like, oh my god, like when is the cycle gonna
Yeah.
end? Sort of like, like I like that. It's almost kind of like the fucking like dark comedy version of the ending of the original Halloween. It's like what is the boogeyman? But you
Yeah.
know what I mean, though. It's just like there is something like there is something very satisfying about the about just kind of that sort of full circle. Like, oh my god, like this character is like he's almost kind of like larger than reality. He's I don't know.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. It's a never-ending cycle, and he's again the man has become the TV. He's become the cable. He's cable incarnate. Where, like, for
Right,
example,
right.
like, we ask him, like, wait, what's your real name? You still want to know mine? Ricky Ricardo. So clearly he's demented. He's just
I like
he's still.
that's one. I mean, you're right. He does give the George Jefferson line, but I like that Ricky Ricardo is like it's kind of like a culmination of like, yeah, that's obviously a fake name. Like George Jefferson, it's generic enough that like it could technically be someone's name. No, but there is nobody fucking named Ricky Ricardo out there. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I love the music here. We actually use like the I Love Lucy theme, like a big
Oh yeah,
band,
it's
like
great.
kind of
It's great. Yeah.
orchestral. It's like, here's I love it. It's like the most like big band, just kind of like awesome version of the I Love Lucy theme you'll ever hear, though.
Did you ever see Rat Race?
No.
Oh man. Oh, you need to see Rat Race. Oh man. Came out the same year as Zoolander. We have some big comedy anniversaries next year for the 25th anniversaries.
Yeah.
Rat Race has a very elaborate I Love Lucy set piece where Chris Tucker essentially gets stranded on a bus with a whole bus full of essentially Lucy cosplayers going to a Lucy convention.
Oh, nice.
And there is indeed a theme song, Needle Drop, and it's pretty glorious.
In Universal, I mean, I think you tell me if you've been to this. Did you ever go? Is there like an I
Lucy a
Love?
Tribute?
Yeah, that one.
Hell yes, I've been to Lucy a Tribute.
Nice, right? Isn't it nice?
It was very nice. It's long gone, unfortunately, but yeah,
Well,
I really liked it when it was there. I hate to be
man,
there
the
of bad news.
sacrifices we make for monsters and dragons and all sorts of things in
Well, okay,
Universal,
to be
man.
fair, that's an entirely different park, Dragon.
Well, you know what? Never forget my point. Redact my point. We're just gonna. Well, still, in general, though, we do
I
it.
don't even like the old. I don't even remember what that attraction replaced, because like if I remember correctly, it was in the. I'm sorry, guys. I'm gonna get a little like deep cut Universal Studios here. Like I don't know where it was in Florida, but I definitely remember in Hollywood. It was like on the lower lot near Jurassic Park. I don't know. Like it must have. I don't think it replaced any. Anyways, I'm getting fucking like yeah.
Okay. Anyway, so yes, we have the medevac guy who basically like assures Chip that he's gonna be okay. He calls him buddy, like, "Okay, buddy, you're gonna be okay." What? Did you call me your buddy?
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Don't call me buddy, pal. Don't call me pal, friend. Sorry, that's a South Park joke. I apologize.
Good for you. Good for you. Okay. Regardless, it's like the cycle is never ending. But again, seriously, just in terms of again, him, killing the babysitter to, like jumping on the tower and just killing the babysitter to kind of like wean everyone off of like the media addiction. Basically, again, in a sense, he is protecting everyone from becoming him, and he kind of had like perspective enough to realize that. Which again is kind of the debate of what the ending may or may not take away. Is that again, did he actually learn anything or not? Now, mind you, even just taking what we have as it is, he does just randomly go off script. He looks, he looks at he just kind of changes his mind inexplicitly, and then he has like the good point that is probably there under the surface, but still, like the inexplicable nature of the change does make you think, okay, he probably would go back to how he just does things. It was kind of a random, like he's flipping channels in his mind, I guess. So I think it still plays, but I mainly want to highlight that in him saving all the little cable boys, the main cable boy that we do see actually get saved is Kyle Gass, Jack Black's buddy.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So he's the chubby cable boy who like picks up the book. Remember, it's like this adorable little moment where it's like this man like, no TV, and he just picks up the book. Oh, I can read. That's him.
All right.
He's also an elf. Anyway.
Thank you. All right.
Just in case, I just wanted to remind you.
You have seen Pick of Destiny, right?
Pick of Destiny?
Tenacious D and the Pick of Destiny?
No.
Oh, man. Oh, you need to get on that. Oh, man. That's a classic. Anyways.
All right.
All right. Final thoughts.
Final thoughts. I mean, the Cable Guy, I think it's oddly more relevant than it's ever been before, and it just kind of goes to show how the power of a cult classic, my friend. It's it's the underrated Jim Carrey movie for a reason, and we need to show that Jim Carrey has range, and this is important in getting us to that point where Jim Carrey, he has the potential to do things are off the reservation, not just dark things, but the fact that he stuck to his guns in doing this, and like screw the studio. I mean, mind you, he had very low stakes. He got paid $20 million up front in whatever the movie made. So I mean, he's maybe it's a low risk ultimately for him, but it was a smart play. He got to have fun. Basically this is him like taking a big swing after. Okay, I really don't want people to think of me as Ace and like keep asking when's Ace Ventura 3. So I'm gonna go really off the reservation. And he didn't want to be the franchise guy. It's why there's only like one Batman. There's one Riddler performance in the Schumacher films and what have you. And you don't want to just just want to go back to the well.
Sure.
So this is important for the tomes. Like we don't get a Truman Show or Man on the Moon or where we go. And again, I would argue Liar Liar is the successful one that allowed him to do that. But still, this is the acorn of that idea. We don't really get him.
And Liar Liar is much less of a risk than this movie.
That's what I'm saying. They're oddly risk and not risk at the same time in different ways. Where again, financially, there's no risk to him. He can do whatever he wants here because he can write his own ticket. And this is kind of what he.
It's essentially the acting version of a blank check.
Yeah. Or Jim Carrey's like screw the they fine, it's a Chris Farley script. I'm going to do what I want with it.
Right.
With Ben Stiller guiding the way, how can I fail? It sounds maybe negative towards Ben Stiller, but it's meant as a compliment.
No, honestly, Ben Stiller, like if you actually look at his filmography, dude, the guy has like a fucking rock solid track record.
Yep.
But
anyway,
Go ahead, sorry.
No, point being, so I like The Cable Guy as the underrated Jim Carrey film that it is, and I like that. I take solace in the fact that it's gotten a lot of praise over the years, and when people find it, So it's always been like the diamond in the rough, with maybe the gem in the rough. It's the gem in the rough of the Jim Carrey films.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think that, like I said initially, I feel like it's kind of funny because, like stuff like The Mask and Liar Liar, like the big ones, the big iconic ones, they're classics for sure, and they're probably a little bit more relevant to the pop culture. Although I wouldn't necessarily say relevant, I would just say more iconic. But this, I feel like, is almost kind of like the magnum opus of Jim Carrey's like 90s movies, just as far as like how well it's aged, the talent behind it. I I mean, Ben Stiller, like, he also did Reality Bites, Ben Stiller, which I've never seen, but I'm kind of inclined to check out now. That was his first movie. This is only Ben Stiller's second directorial movie, and I mean, I think he knocks it out of the park. Like I said, I feel like this movie is just, obviously, I keep kind of hitting this point, but it's very ahead of its time. It's ahead of its time as far as like the parasocial interactions and the perils of that, especially now with, you know, the online sphere that we're all in, and, you know, not really knowing if the people that we're interacting with online. I mean, Dragon, you could, you could be like a fucking like 60-year-old dude, you know, like, I don't fucking know. I legitimately don't know, you know, like, you know, the internet is a weird place, you know. I wouldn't shame you if you were, but I'm just saying it'd be a surprise. But anyways, that probably wasn't the best example, but I digress. Yeah, it's ahead of its time in that way, and just kind of like the perils of how we manage friendships and stuff like that. But also, I feel like it's ahead of its time just in as far as like the idea of like taking an iconic comedic actor and essentially like recontextualizing them. Like, it's very much, this very much feels like a proto Punch Drunk Love in that way, which I think is really fascinating to look at it through that lens. So yeah, definitely a classic. All right. Okay, well, big thanks to Little Blue Productions, aka Eli, Code Geass, and Teddy for joining us in the comments. We will be back next week with another Jim Carrey retrospective. We've got some Goofy movie stuff coming your way. We've got a retrospective podcast on the new Goofy movie documentary that just came out, as well as hot off the presses, folks. Next Thursday, we've got a Goofy movie debate. Peregrine versus Laser Dude. Who will prevail? All right. Have a good night, everyone. See y'all later.
Cable Guy!
Cable Guy!